Putting in a vineyard is a very expensive proposition. You have to buy the land, you have to clear the land, you have to buy the vines, you have to take care of them for 5 years before you even get any fruit out of them. Then you have to have a trellis system, you have to spray them continuously to keep the mildew off. And then after 5 years of putting in all of this time and effort, you finally get a bottle of wine. That's not exactly a great business plan. And then you can build a winery. And then you can buy tanks and presses and filters, and then bottles and corks and labels. And the costs are all up front. It's really very expensive to do.
It's been a long process of getting to the point where we're at today, where we're actually making money. In the beginning, a lot of wineries would go into the business and it was almost impossible for them to make a living at it just because of the way the laws were structured. In the beginning, we weren't even allowed to do tastings at a charge. The legislation said we had to give you free drinks. And I went to my friends in the Senate and said to them, please show me a bar where I can go have a free drink all day long. And they said, they don't exist. And I said, yes, they do. They're Connecticut wineries. And the statute says that we have to give you a free drink, must give you a free tasting. And he said, that's absurd. I said, yes, that was put on the books in 1978.
We need to sell wine in order to stay in business. You know, it's like you can grow the best tomatoes, but if everybody's wearing, I love local tomatoes, but they're not buying any, you know, it's all about, that's the other end of the sustainability and support. People actually, they can't just believe in it and talk about it, they have to purchase the local product.
The enhancement of the local foods, people want to have that and they want fresh, and they're completely excited about having, like for instance, Cato Corner Farms cheese right across the road, and having our wine with that. So they're, you know, it's healthier, it's helping the environment, it's helping your surroundings that you love, so it's a win for everybody.
Originally, we had a 51% rule. And the 51% rule literally said we had to grow 51% of the grapes on this single piece of property. And if you only had 7 acres, it means the maximum you could ever be is what you can grow on 51% of it had to come off of that one piece of property. And so it really put handcuffs on you on how big your farm could be. Even though you may own 40, 50, 60 acres somewhere else, you could only be 49% bigger than the 7-acre piece of property that you owned. It made absolutely no sense.
Here in 2004, you had to have at least 51% fruit in your product, and it can be very difficult for a winery to plan. If you have a particularly bad year, you can plan on having, you know, 51%. But if you have a bad year and you come in and you already have contracts with out-of-state growers to buy such and such amount, and what you produce yourself with the best of intentions only comes up to, say, 45% of your total product, technically you're in violation of the law that way.
In order for it to be a sustainable model, you have to have some sort of predictable amount of asset you can sell. And what is nice to be able to do is have a resource in a year, maybe like 2 years ago, where there weren't a lot of grapes, to say, all right, we're gonna produce X amount of Chardonnay this year, and to be able to have some flexibility to do that, that's great.
Before they changed the law, and you had to have 50% or 51%, 51%. I'm going to say probably not very many people, if any, grew 51%. So they changed it to 25 to make it easier to comply.
There were some wineries that were cited as being in violation of the law back then.
With the 25% rule, it now allows someone to leverage their property and to go national from the state of Connecticut. When we started, we were number 7. We were the 7th winery in the state of Connecticut that was operating. I had a meeting last week or week before, it was probably I think week before last now, and there's 32. And so in 10 years you've gone from 7 to 32. What causes all the growth, right? And I don't think you have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that the growth came from us changing the legislation to make it easier and better and more profitable for you to do business in the state of Connecticut.
And when the people are making 25%, where are they getting usually the other 75%?
Well, I guess that goes back to the label. If you look at the label and the label says Connecticut, they're getting the rest of the grapes from within the state of Connecticut. If it says something other than Connecticut, I guess it could say international, it could have, because the federal government regulates that, then they may be getting their grapes from a variety of sources.
I understand a lot of the other folks in Connecticut that are making wine. They're utilizing oftentimes as much of the resources that are available to them as they can, and which includes getting grapes from other regions when it works for their business model.
Once you pick grapes, the enzymes in the fruit starts to act on the harvested fruit immediately. So you want to get them crushed as quickly as possible and get the fermentation going. If you just let it sit, it's like this big microbial soup. And if you have the wrong microorganisms in there, it can cause some really off flavors very quickly.
And where do you bring in the other grapes from?
We bring in grapes from all over the world.
In the very beginning, it was all grown here, but the wine became so popular that it was not possible to meet the demand. Most of the grapes we buy come from New York. So we have contracts with grape growers in the Finger Lakes. On occasion, we buy some grapes from Long Island.
In the Central Valley and the San Joaquin Valley of California, that's some of the most fertile ground in the world. You can grow just about anything there, but then you have to transport those grapes 3,000 miles. And once again, then you start losing your local product identification.
There's some that think that we should be 100% rule. I think that's probably too restrictive. There's some that think we should go back to the 51% rule. And my personal opinion is they didn't have to live under the 51% rule because I can see the difference objectively on how much we've grown since that rule has changed. For me, I'm 100%. It makes no difference whatsoever. It's not going to change my business model. But my business model is not everyone else's business models. Other people may have mortgages and things that they have to pay for, and they may look at farming differently than my wife and I do.
When I started getting interested in wines, and I got interested in California wines because I read about some of these wines are very good. So the liquor store in my town didn't have any really. So I went town over, and I walked in and I said, "Can I help you?" I said, "I'm looking for some good California wine." He said, "Well, you came to the right shop. I have good wine and I have California wine." Now nobody would say that today, but this is 1970s, and this was the mentality. California wine was cheap wine.
You think that's the same story with Connecticut?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we can make good wine here in Connecticut. If people work hard at it and they grow the right varieties, you can definitely make good wine. no doubt in my mind.